There are lots of questions surrounding the Seahawks as we continue through this offseason, and we've been fortunate to bandy some of them about with our wonderful guests. But we want to know what's on your minds as OTAs kick off and we get closer to the start of another exciting season. It's the first Cigar Thoughts Mailbag of 2023. Let's light them up. I'm Jackson Bevins, and this is Cigar Thoughts. Welcome back to the Cigar Lounge. I am Jackson Bevins, and along with my somnambulant producer, Mike Barwin, this is the Cigar Thoughts podcast. Mike, how are we doing today?
Good Lord, what a word. We're doing well, Jackson. How are you? Jesus, I feel like I've just been thrown for a loop. I feel like I'm pretty adaptive to these descriptors that you throw down, but goddamn, man, wow, put me in the spin cycle. Jeez.
Well, hey, man, that's going to be kind of the theme for this show because we're letting the viewers decide how this goes. We're letting the listeners drive the boat today. We got some amazing questions coming in for our mailbag episode. I haven't even seen most of them, so we're going to be reacting in real time as they happen. And we are lucky to have been joined by some incredible guests on the show. But I got to say, man, I get excited about episodes like this. Because at the end of the day, Mike, are we heroes? Maybe. I mean, who are we to say? Is the answer to that question yes? Probably. But more than anything, Mike, we are men of the people.
That's right.
And we want to hear what the people are thinking about.
That's right. We do, and we will.
Yes, we will. But before we get to that, I want to remind everyone listening that the official Cigar Thoughts cigars are now available for purchase at cigarthoughtsnfl.com. Direct links to order them will be in the notes of this show page as well, so feel free to click that from whichever platform you're listening on. These cigars, as you know by now, are made from a blend of premier Dominican tobacco leaf that has been aged 13 years and are available to Cigar Thoughts listeners for less than half of their normal MSRP. Do it for yourself, and do it to help support the show. The delivery is speedy, and the feedback has been incredible. We've had multiple people tell us they're the most enjoyable cigars they've ever had. So if you're looking to level up that experience, you won't find a better dollar-for-dollar return than these stogies. We've also launched our YouTube channel where you can catch entire episodes as well as video clips from every show. This is one of the best ways you can support Cigar Thoughts, so we're grateful for the few seconds it'll take for you to subscribe. And now, Mike, let's answer some gosh dang questions. Pardon my language.
You know, I normally find you and everything that you do and say morally reprehensible, but
yeah,
that's a little too far. But let's jump right into it, Jackson. We put out a call for questions to our followers on Twitter and Instagram, and they have come through for us in a big way.
They always do.
They always do. So let's get this train rolling. We'll start out with a question from @KingDavidK1. They asked, even after the selfie tour, why do you think the Hawks passed on trading up for a quarterback and drafting one entirely? What is the plan at QB then?
Man, that is a hell of a question to kick this show off with. Okay, so my thoughts are, and those who have been listening know I was pro the right quarterback. I'm perfectly comfortable moving forward with Geno as the guy, have been for a long time, and it's clear that the team is too. I think that when Anthony Richardson went off the board, it became a Devin Witherspoon draft for them. I think if Richardson was still there, or if for some reason Young or Stroud had slipped to 5, I think that's a much, much more difficult decision for them. I don't think the selfie tour with the quarterbacks was a smokescreen. I do think once you do it with one of them, you got to do it with all of them just to kind of keep the charade going. But
diversify
I think if Anthony Richardson... Yeah, that's exactly it, man. I think if Richardson was there at 5, they are thinking really, really hard about it. Now, the fact that they didn't take another quarterback later in the draft, a little bit surprising. I do think the way that they handled the first 2 days of the draft kind of painted them into a little bit of a corner in terms of attacking the trenches and all of that. But I also do think Pete Carroll likes Drew Lock. I think it truly was an open competition last year, and I think they're comfortable with him as backup if something were to happen with Geno.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, when Richardson went off the board, the writing was on the wall at that point. I think that they were infatuated with him as well as yours truly and yourself.
Yeah.
But in terms of them not drafting a quarterback at all, the popular name was Hendon Hooker. I think that we talked about Dane Brugler mocking him to Seattle with that first second-round pick. And Seattle had a chance to draft him again at 52, and instead they took a running back. And then about 15 or 16 picks later, he ended up going to Detroit. So, I mean, the timeline, you signed Geno to that deal. They're building around Geno. I think that the future is clearly a bit murky with that piece of the puzzle lacking down the line, but they're building around the here and now, and I don't have a problem with that because doubling up on that investment financially is a tough look.
Yeah, I think you have to be pretty smitten with the quarterback to do that. And again, Richardson having been the most realistic option, I think, potentially for Seattle at 5. Okay, yeah, he's the type of quarterback that you don't have to think too hard about maybe sitting for a year and letting Geno get paid this year and do his thing and then make a decision next year. But after that tier, if you don't love Will Levis, if you don't love Hendon Hooker and see real quarterback of the future potential in those guys, I don't know that there was anyone in this draft that's markedly better than Drew Lock. And so, you extended Drew Lock this offseason, and he's liked by that coaching staff and liked by that team and is familiar with the offense. And, that's, I think they're set there, and it wouldn't matter who you have behind those two guys. If both Geno Smith and Drew Lock go down, they're not doing anything this year anyway. So, yeah, I think once you get past that true franchise quarterback tier in this class, doesn't bug me too much.
Yeah, me neither. I think that maybe this is just the Pac-12 Stockholm syndrome talking, but maybe somebody like Dorian Thompson-Robinson in the 5th round could have been fun, but I'm not broken up about any of it. So we move.
Exactly. Yeah, we move, baby. That, and I actually really like that. He was someone I did have him on my radar, and he's someone that we discussed briefly when we had Derek Klassen on talking about some of the QB prospects. He was a guy, like I say, on my radar, but if they had used that pick on him instead of, it was Jarek Reed or I can't remember if he's still on board with Kenny McIntosh was there. Yeah. I'd totally get it. But, ultimately I feel really good about their draft. And, when after 2024, they are going to have some decisions to make. They're probably not going to be drafting super high. So maybe they can trick another team into giving, them one of their top picks. But it may be competing on the open free agent market for the quarterback after Geno.
So let's move on to another question that centers on the quarterback discourse. This is from at Thanos Nix. Sorry about your Knickerbockers, my friend. That was a tough look, but everybody's taking L's from Jimmy Butler. So what can you say?
God, I love Jimmy Butler.
Agree. So the question is, completely hypothetically, let's say that we plug Russ into the Seahawks last year, still have Charles Cross, Abe Lucas, etc., all the draft picks and whatnot. Does he put up better stats / play better than Geno did?
Whoa. So the Seahawks have Russ, but they also have everything they got
all
in
of the
Russ
infrastructure
trade
that they received from the Russ trade. Yep.
Man. I tell you what, Russ would have been a lot better than he was in Denver.
Yep.
I do think some of his struggles were circumstantial. I think he had a coach that was overmatched. I think that they had a lot of issues up front. And the vibes started off bad, and I think he would have been better. Would he have been as good as Geno? I mean, Geno was the top 6 quarterback in the NFL last year. Certainly top 8. I don't know, man.
No. I think the answer is
no.
Probably no, because the areas of Geno's game where he really excelled relative to Russ, where it's so tired talking about it, but it's like, hitting that mid-range, hitting those digs. Like we saw on film, Russ just staring down Cortland Sutton running in that intermediate area and just not pulling the trigger. And on the flip side, the part of Russell's game that he has been so elite at for so long is deep passing. And I think that Geno exceeded every single expectation that we could have and did have for him in that area. So I don't know, man. I really think I agree with you that Russ would have been better than he was in Denver with that coaching situation and all of the drama and whatnot. But yeah, I'm not sure he would have been as solid as Geno, but I can tell you that on the trip to Munich, he would have done a lot more high knees. So.
Yeah, agree there.
All right, let's move on. This one comes in from Tall Glass of Charbonnet at Sportle Fantasy.
Love it.
Which current Seahawk would you most like to have in the cigar lounge to chop it up?
Oh, man.
I'm going to have to bonk you over the head on this one.
Oh, baby. Top of my head, there's 3 that jump out. And that is DK Metcalf, Quandre Diggs, and Bobby Wagner. How about you?
I would say, I feel like it would be really cool to have Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant in at the same time.
That would be
they
fun.
seem like they really vibe with one another. I also have heard that Colby Parkinson is a big cigar guy. So
I was just gonna say, man, I've smoked cigars with Colby, and he is a great hang. Love to get that guy in the lounge for sure.
Yep. All right, let's move on. Hustle Chilson coming in.
What up, Hustle Chilson?
What's going on?
Good follow on Twitter.
Were you guys surprised that offensive coaching weapons Shane Waldron and Nate Carroll weren't hired away by other teams this offseason? Emphasis on Nate Carroll.
Yeah, the Nate Carroll one is funny. But Waldron, I think that's going to be a thing. I don't know that last year was enough to like really put him on the radar. Like the Seahawks offense was good and certainly very good relative to expectations. But I think if he does it again, if the Seahawks have a top 8 offense this year, top 10 offense this year, it's gonna be a thing. I mean, he's young. Coaching hires are trending young in the NFL right now. And I think, what is he, 42? So
McVay tree.
Yeah, exactly. And the McVay tree has had success in the NFL. You know, I mean, his assistant coaches have already wildly outperformed all of Belichick's in terms of NFL.
The bar is low there. The bar is low there.
That's true. That's very true.
But point taken.
Yeah. So I honestly hadn't thought about it prior to this question, but in retrospect, I guess I am a little surprised he wasn't at least getting interviews.
I think there was some buzz around it. Guess we should keep in mind that the 2-year sample of Shane Waldron in Seattle, the first year was Russell's last in Seattle and dealing with that injury and everything that came with that. So while he was clearly a huge part of Geno stepping up and becoming a Pro Bowl quarterback in his first year starting in several years, I think teams want to see that sample grow a little more and see if it's repeatable before taking that gamble. So, yeah, if they're cooking this year similarly or even more so than they were last season, then I think that buzz will light up even more.
Yeah, totally. And I think this is a good reminder about something that we've talked about on this show a couple of times when it comes to, you know, you see a coordinator have a lot of success and, you know, maybe they go on and struggle as a head coach or they don't get the interview opportunities or whatever as a head coach. It is important to understand the difference between running an offense or running a defense and running an NFL franchise. I mean, these are, if they were publicly traded, I mean, these are Fortune 500 companies. And what Pete Carroll does, what the really good head coaches do, extends so far beyond what happens on Sunday. I mean, you know, it's the difference between being a really good salesman and being the CEO, between being the accountant and being the CFO. Like, just because you're really good at one thing doesn't necessarily qualify you to run the whole operation. And the whole operation at the NFL level is insane. I mean, we've seen so many really successful coordinators. I don't know why Jim Schwartz is the first one to jump to mind, but Josh McDaniels another one, right? You see it all the time. Matt Patricia. There's a lot of guys who were very successful as coordinators when all they had to do was focus on that side of the ball and could really stick to X's and O's and personnel and grinding the tape and strategizing. That, in the grand scheme, ends up being a much smaller piece of the head coach puzzle. So, I'll be curious to see what kind of chops the league sees a guy like Shane Waldron having when it comes to running a team. Because some guys step in and they're awesome. You know, Zach Taylor's done an amazing job in Cincinnati. I think Robert Saleh is going to be a great coach with the Jets now that he's got a quarterback. You know, some people, I think DeMeco Ryans is going to be really good for the Texans, but those are, you know, going from coordinator to head coach is a miss more often than it's a hit. And I think it's why you see so many retreads at the coaching level, because if you're an owner and you've got a $5 billion franchise, you want the person running that to have some experience.
Let's move on to a question from Instagram from Dom Biscaret.
Hey, what up, Dom?
Dom asks, what's the baseline for a successful 2023 season for D. Eskridge?
D. Eskridge discourse.
D. Eskridge discourse. And Dom suggests that he would take 500 yards and 4 teeters.
That'd be a great season.
I agree.
That'd be a great season.
I agree. What would the hallmarks of a successful season for D. Eskridge look like in your eyes?
You know, I think the ship has sailed on him justifying his draft slot. So it comes down to how we frame it. Is he ever going to be worth pick number 52, I believe is what he was, or 56? I just don't see it. I mean, he's at best 4th on the pecking order now.
Well, that's exactly it. The paradigm has totally shifted. You draft him to be the number 3, and now you hope that he can be a high-end number 4.
Yeah, and it sucks that, you know, the back of his jersey may as well read not Creed Humphreys. You know, like that's the thing, right? Like that's what he had to outperform, and then you get the injuries, and he was old to start with. I mean, he was a 24-year-old draft pick. But if you remove the draft expectations and just like, did he help this team win games? Yeah. I think it's less about his total yardage as it is, did he make some plays that help you win games, right? Marquise Goodwin is a good example of a guy who had a couple of really good performances in spots where he needed to, and it helped the team win. That's kind of what it is. If he has a big 3rd and 14 conversion on a drive that ends up leading to a game-winning field goal, you know, if he returns a punt to set up a crucial score, like that's how he has a successful season. You know, in terms of justifying being a 2nd-round pick, it's hard to imagine that happening.
Yeah, I think that what I'm looking for is how the target share evolves throughout the year, because with JSN coming into the fold, there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for him like there was, at least the way that coaches wanted to insert him into the offense, you know, like running gadget plays. Maybe those are still there, but I think I'm looking for just the way that he is, the way that they're trying to stress a defense with his usage, and if that is actually successful, if his yards per completion is above a certain amount, because the whole idea was that he could be a deep threat, you know, or like run those like deep intermediate crossers and just like leave man coverage in the dust. Yeah, you just want to be multiple on offense, and if he can provide a little extra oomph from the wide receiver position, then if he's a net positive, then that's great. I don't think that he needs to necessarily reach 500 yards and 4 tutties to have it be successful.
I mean, that would be,
but that would be
that would be
ideal.
Great.
Ideal.
But you know what? If he's getting 500 yards, it probably means one of the top 3 wide receivers got hurt.
I was going to say that exact thing as well.
I think the opportunity cost of him, if he's doing that as the 4th receiver, I don't know the NFL has ever seen a team with 4 500-yard receivers on it. And
you have to keep in mind, he would have to supersede the tight ends as well.
Well, and I'm actually glad you mentioned that, because what I was just going to say, and I really do love this question, because D. Eskridge is a really interesting kind of thought experiment. And here's another way that I think he can justify it, because if I were to rank him among the Seattle position group players, he's behind both the running backs, he's behind 3 receivers, and he's behind at least 2 of the tight ends, I think. Certainly at least one of them. Mm-hmm. And so now we're talking about 8th or 9th on the totem pole when it comes to the skill position players. His opportunity really came when those ranks were a lot thinner, when it was just DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett as, real dudes who demand targets, when the tight end room was thinner, and when the running back room was thinner. Like, that's the time when you're leaning on DJ Dallas, for some third down work. Be nice to have a guy like Eskridge out there. I think one other way that you can justify,
Homer,
of course. Well, I mean, good luck
outperforming. That was implicit. I get it.
Yeah, of course, that was assumed. But I think that another way that he can have a quote unquote successful impact this season is to have enough splash plays when he's out there that defenses are forced to account for him. Right now, if you were to just put him out there, I don't think defenses are going to be too worried about him. And they'll just let whoever is in his zone or whoever happens to have his assignment take him. But if he can have a couple of Percy Harvin type plays on jet sweeps or screen passes or a wheel route or something, if he puts film on tape that defensive coordinators like, hey, when Eskridge is out there, we need to account for him, then you're opening up things for other guys and you can make the offense more dangerous that way.
That's exactly the point that I was that I had in mind when I mentioned, a high yards per completion or a high yards per touch number, because even if the opportunities are limited, what are you doing with those opportunities? Like at the end of the season last year, we saw Derek Young get on the field, and in that final Rams game, I think he had like 3 touches and they were all first downs or something like that, like 12 yards per touch, nothing spectacular, but getting it done when called upon. And I really think that is probably the definition of success, making the most of what they're giving you, the opportunities that you're provided.
If he can be David Moore or Chris Matthews.
David Moore is the perfect.
Jaron Brown.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. The guy that, you might only get 40 targets this year, but if you can catch 25 of them for, 300 yards and score a couple times, that's meaningful.
Yep, definitely. All right, let's move on to another question on Instagram from our boy Patton. Patton says, all the Vegas lines have been released for the 2023 season. Does anything jump out at you? And Patton notes that the Seahawks are 5.5-point favorites versus the Rams.
Oh, he's talking week 1 opening lines.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yes.
Patton, this is irresponsible. This is irresponsible radio.
First of all, how dare you?
I can't speak on week 1 opening lines. 5.5 favorites against the Rams is absolutely fair on paper. There is no chance that they beat the Rams by 5.5 points. They've never done it since McVay showed up. They're not going to do it now. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think that game's actually going to be fucking miserable.
That's going to be a pucker fest for sure.
Yeah, I think Seattle probably wins it, but it's going to be some 16-12 bullshit. But
because the Rams just don't field an NFL caliber defense right now.
Right.
Like, look at that barren wasteland of a depth chart.
Tyler Higbee had a quote the other day because he attended rookie camp and just kind of watched guys and help coach them up or whatever. And he was like, "This is half of our team." I think they only have 40 dudes under contract from last year and they have 90 in camp. So yeah, I don't know. But you know what that does make me think about? Let me pull them up real quick. We do have some win-loss over-unders that are out. And this is something I think, even though this is still a little premature, I think this is something I could speak to a little bit. So some lines that I like early on, the team that they give the lowest over-unders to in terms of total wins are usually sucker bets. But the Arizona Cardinals at 5.5 wins, I can't see a world where they win 6 games this year. So I'll probably hammer that under. The Jets opened up at 8.5 wins. They're up to 9.5 wins. I think that division is too good. I think the Patriots are going to be a lot better now that they actually have a real offensive coordinator. I think the Dolphins are really, really good. I think the Bills are one of the 5 best teams in the NFL. I think 10 wins is going to be really, really hard to come by there. I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFL, just top to bottom. And theirs is at 10.5. I think 11-6 is extremely reasonable for them. The Seahawks, for what it's worth, their over-under is at 8.5. So they just need to be as good as they were last year from win-loss perspective to beat that. I feel pretty good about that one as well. And I think in that, I don't know. I don't see the Titans winning 8 games. They're at 7.5. I just don't see that either.
The way that our brains have processed Malik Willis from a year ago to now.
I know.
It's quite the shift. Quite the shift.
We're sitting there at 9. Do they take him? Should they take him? Oh, sitting there at 41. Do they take him?
It's Will Levis time. Malik Willis.
Yeah. You know what? Let's do this real quick. Let's look at the teams just in the Seahawks division. And Mike, you tell me over under what you think. We got Cardinals at 5.5.
Yeah, I'm probably with you at the under. I think they have the best shot at the number 1 overall pick, and by virtue of them having the Texans pick the number 2 overall pick also.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Yeah.
The 2 lowest projected win totals are both 5.5, and it's the Cardinals and the Texans. Awesome. And the Cardinals have both those picks. Man, that's wild. All right, Rams over under 7.5.
My head says under, my heart says over, because McVay's a demon, and I'll never trust it until I see it. That's like the triple tap. You need to kill them thrice before I believe they're dead.
Yeah, they're winning 8 games
for sure.
They're winning.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some evil
if they're
shit
healthy,
that happens
they're
to
still
accomplish that.
Yeah. Stafford is still awesome. Kupp is incredible. Akers came on super strong last year. They're going to score some points. They're not going to be nearly as injured as they were last year. Aaron Donald, still arguably the best player on the defensive side of the ball. That's good enough to win 8 games.
Yeah. All right. What are the Niners at?
And the 49ers are at 11.5, sharing with the Chiefs for the highest, and the Bengals actually for the highest over under.
NFC's weak. They don't have a quarterback. Well, they have 3 quarterbacks, but you don't know which one of them is going to
3 quarterbacks that add up to 1 quarterback.
Be under center. Exactly. I'm going to go over.
Oh, man. 12 wins, 12-5 it's hard to do, man. They're going to have the first place schedule. You win your division, you get all the other division.
It's a good line.
It's a good line. I'm taking the under. I think 11 is the number. Is the number. I won't be shocked. And let's see, how's it weighted? Okay. So right now the money looks to be strong on the under. It's minus 155 on the under. It's plus 135. So if you think they're going to win 12 games, you'll get a 35% return on top of your initial investment if that hits. So right now the market is feeling the under, but am I going to be surprised if they go 13-4? Not really. I won't even be that shocked if they win 14 games. I mean, they're so good. That roster is so good. Yep. But I don't know. I think, I put them in the Eagles right there. I think the Eagles were better last year at full strength. I think they were winning that NFC Championship game, even if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt. And so it's easier for me to see them getting the number 1 seed. And I think if you're exceeding 11 wins, you're going to have a real good shot at the number 1 overall seed.
The question from Patton about that 5.5 point line, Seahawks over Rams, reminds me of a few years ago. You and I were chatting at the time. I'm not one to make sports bets all that often. In fact, I have
That's healthy.
made 3. I've made 3 in my life, and until I took the Warriors Kings money line in Game 5, I think it was the one that Harrison Barnes missed the shot at the buzzer to lose. I was undefeated, but the first of those was a Seahawks Cardinals game a few years ago in December. It was in Seattle, and the Seahawks were 13.5-point favorites. And I remember texting you, and I was like, I think I'm going to bet against the Seahawks here. And what do you know?
Yeah.
It was a disgusting rainy game at CenturyLink.
Stone cold lock, man.
It was a guarantee that they were going to lose against the spread, and then they fucking lost outright. It was the game where Kyler got hurt
McCoy,
too.
right?
I think it was the game where Kyler got hurt and Brett Hundley came in. It was the Brett Hundley revenge game.
Oh,
if I'm remembering this correctly.
Man.
So, yeah, nice little easy dub.
We talked about how irresponsible Patton's question was in the first place. It is irresponsible to make the Seahawks a 2-touchdown favorite over any team. Any team.
All right, let's move on to this question from Raul Alvarez. Raul asks, who will lead the Hawks in sacks this year, and will they reach over 10?
Ooh, Raul coming in with the heat. Let's see. Leader last year was Nwosu, and what do you have?
Nwosu and Taylor both had 9.5. They both had 9.5.
I gotta think Nwosu's the favorite. I think a 10 sack season from him is an outlier. I'll be pretty surprised if anybody's got 10 sacks. I think your top candidates for that are Nwosu, Taylor, of course, right? His come in bunches. And then if I was betting on this, I'd probably take a flyer on Jamal Adams. I think he is going to be an in the box safety if he stays healthy. We've seen him do it before. And then I don't know, man, Derek Hall. I mean, I could see it, but no, I don't think we're going to see a 10 sack guy.
The hot take that I had brewing when I read this question was that Kobe Bryant was going to break Jamal Adams' sack record for a DB and end up with 10.5.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. You know, honestly, man,
it's definitely not going to happen.
If you watch Devin Witherspoon's tape, that dude is an absolute maniac when they sent him. Like, I mean, true, you hear defensive players called heat-seeking missiles all the time, and it's like, you hear that after a guy makes a big play. You watch that dude's tape, I mean, he is magnetically drawn to the ball at an insane pace.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us into the next question from Kevin Sylvie. Kevin asks, how do you see Woolen's knee procedure affecting their plans in the secondary? And that's a piece of news that we got today, that Tariq Woolen had a minor procedure to clean things up, but he should be ready in time for training camp. So what are you thinking on that?
That was an unsettling tweet to see.
It was.
And apparently, a lot of the initial response was, why is he waiting? If he was hurt, why is he waiting till now to have it done? But it sounds like it happened on the practice field, kind of in between drills. And so maybe there was something that was there before that got tweaked and this brought their attention to it. I don't know a lot of the details. It sounds like it's a pretty minor procedure. The Artie Burns signing probably helps there a little bit. I do think they have depth there to cover Tariq if for some reason this is a slower recovery, but I'm hoping it's a non-issue. It sounds like it's a 5 to 6 week type recovery deal. He's not trying to earn a spot on the team anymore, so I think they can really protect him, and I think they're going to. But drafting Devin Witherspoon and re-signing Artie Burns and already having Kobe Bryant and some other talent there, some depth there, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, you've got depth in Michael Jackson, Trey Brown. You've got all these guys around. It's
totally
one of, if not their deepest position on the roster. So it's rough, but I mean, it seems like everything went according to plan. He should be back in time by training camp, and if not, you have the depth to accommodate that if things take a little bit longer. So
totally.
All right, next one comes in from Rick Judd at RickJudd21. Rick asks, which rookie or year 2 player do you think gets a C first? And by C, I believe Rick means a captain's patch on the jersey.
Rick Judd, Great question, man. All right. Charles Cross.
Okay.
I think left tackle. I think left tackle is one of those captain positions. That's, there's a lot of left tackles that have been that dude for their team. And, whether it's, in Seattle, we've seen it obviously, with Walter Jones, Dwayne Brown, you look at guys like Trent Williams. I mean, we've talked about it before on this show, man. A lot of times, if you had to send out one dude from your team to go win a fight against one dude from the other team, you're probably sending out your left tackle. Like that's the baddest dude on a lot of teams. So given how well he played as a rookie, probably him. And then, man, you got a second guy?
Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks just brought in this guy that seems like he'll play with force. This guy, his name's, I think, Bobby Wagner. Seems like an impressive guy. Has a lot of leadership qualities that you would look for.
I guess if he counts as a year one guy.
Yes, yeah. I think Rob Staten has mentioned this a lot, and all of the quotes that have come out from coaches at Auburn and high school and all of the above. Derek Hall seems to be a guy that is laying in wait to assume a huge leadership vacancy in that locker room when the time comes.
Yeah, I like that call.
He has that it factor. He's, we've talked about it. He was really productive in the SEC. He was commanding that locker room. His coaches speak so highly of him. I could absolutely see him stepping up to take that mantle at some point.
Yeah, I like that call. One of the guys that I really fell in love with in the pre-draft process was Nolan Smith. It was a defensive end out of Georgia, and he ended up going number 30 overall to the Eagles, which of course he did. Fucking Eagles. But Derek Hall was only 7 picks later.
The Philadelphia Bulldogs.
Yeah, man. And I wasn't paying a ton of attention to Derek Hall leading up to the draft. But of course, after the Seahawks took him, you start to dig in and you start to read articles about the kid and the way his coaches and teammates talked about him. And then you look at how he actually plays and you look at his tape, and that's the type of guy that, Nolan Smith, that was kind of the thing, is like, this dude can come in and be the captain immediately. And I think there's a lot of echoes of that in Derek Hall. So that one surprised me. That was a good call, Mike.
All right. Next one is coming in from Seattle Teacher's Burner at C Teacher. Shouts to C Teacher.
I love this guy.
C Teacher asks, if you had to have one, which Seahawk do you want on your fantasy team this year, and what round would you take them in?
Whoa. Okay. That's a great question. I think it's DK Metcalf. I just think he's a guy where his price is probably pushed down a little bit by the JSN draft pick, but he might see fewer targets this year than he has the last few, but I think there'll be better targets because we saw all last season defenses just shade over the top of him. And when you're not afraid of a slot receiver, you can do that. You can cheat half a man over the top of DK Metcalf. And that's why we saw his ADOT, his average depth of target, be so low. Is teams just like, he's just not going to get behind us. But you can't do that if Jackson Smith-Njigba is just getting open all the time. And so I think we're going to see much higher leverage targets from Metcalf, and it'll be enough to make up any loss in volume. But right behind him, I think Ken Walker is still going to be excellent. Walker was a top 10 fantasy running back on a per game basis last year, and assuming full health, I see no reason he can't do that again. And then every year, the absolute most undervalued dude in fantasy football is Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
Every year, he's a top 15 guy. Yep. So, I think all three of those, I think Geno is going to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback. I think he was QB6 last year. Seattle's got some options, but if I could only have one Seahawk on my team, considering what they're going to go for, I think DK is the guy.
That's a huge upset that you would have chosen him as your answer. I can't believe this. My God, what is the world coming to? I was going to say Tyler Lockett because he just seems perennially undervalued. Seems to be a trend with.
You're going to be able to get Lockett in like the
Seattle
7th or 8th round, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna get Tyler Lockett for like $9 in your auction. It's gonna probably best return on the investment. You're probably right.
Yep. Under the radar pickup could be Abe Lucas, with the history that George Fant has set, the precedent that he has set. They love to send their right tackles out on routes every so often. So sleeper, keep that in mind.
Yeah. If you're in a PPP league, point per pancake, then I think you could do a lot worse than Abe Lucas.
That's right. And then another quick one from C Teacher. They've been tweeting a lot about the departure of one Travis Homer, RIP. And C Teacher asked if Zach Charbonnet can fill the Travis Homer size hole in my heart. And the answer to that is maybe, but probably not, because the jersey number is really bad, Jackson. 26, I don't love that. I think the pick might be bad specifically because of the jersey number.
26 is a rough one, man.
It's bad. But the thing about the filling that void is usually it's a later round guy, and I've got my alarm bells ringing on Kenny McIntosh because I don't know if you've seen the Pass Pro film, but it's electric. And
oh yeah, when he was at the Senior Bowl and he was like picking up linebackers.
Yes. Oh, it's nasty. But you can't force this. You have to let these later round gems come to you. You can't go searching.
Where are you at in your grieving process?
I'm about 2 months away from acceptance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
still denial. As
soon as McIntosh, as soon as McIntosh catches a wheel route for a 40-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter of the third preseason game, you're going to be in.
I'm still mourning CJ Procise, so I mean, this is a process.
Oh, me too. He was my guy. Yeah, he was my guy.
I remember you wrote like a whole column on field goals, just drooling over the potential after they drafted.
Oh man, I totally. And I still to this day he's like Duke Johnson for me, where I'm just like,
yep.
The NFL was wrong about this guy. I mean, granted, he got hurt a bunch, but whatever. But whenever the ball was in his hands, it was kind of like how Rashad Penny was for the first few years.
Yep.
Couldn't stay on the field, but when he did, it was like, this guy's really fucking good at football. Yeah. Thanks for that. Just ripping open an old scab.
That's right. There was that final preseason that he was in Seattle before they let him go, Procise that is. And it was against like the Raiders or something. And he had like 80 yards or something, but he looked silky smooth, that like gliding running style that he had, and it looked like CJ Procise, and it was like, oh my God, it's happening, and then just like broke his clavicle or something, and it was just immediately over, and then that was the end of the line. It was just
he had a game against the Eagles where he had like 140 yards, and it was just like, yep, this is
like a 78-yard touchdown on like the first touch of the game, just unbelievable. Yeah, wow. Name some guys. All right. Next one. The final question of the day comes from Tim Schwiesau. Tim, please forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly. It's all lowercase and
let us know if we got that wrong.
Yeah. Please forgive me, anybody, if I have botched your names. All right. Tim asks.
All right, take us home, Tim.
Trying to have a realistic outlook. What's the optimistic outcome for the 23 season in Seattle?
I think the most optimistic outcome within like the real range of expectations is the NFC Championship game.
Okay.
I think that's maybe not their 1% outcome. I think you play the season out 100 times, they probably get to the Super Bowl once or twice, but I think that they get to the NFC Championship game between 5 and 10 times. I think that is something that could really happen. And here's why. I think that there's only 2 teams in the NFC that are definitely better than them, and 3 that I'm like pretty confident are better than them. Top 2, of course, being the 49ers and the Eagles. I think the Cowboys are right in that next tier kind of by themselves, but After that, your contenders in the conference are the Lions, the Vikings. Probably not the Packers.
The Giants.
Yeah, I don't see it with the Giants. I really don't.
It's all underwhelming. I'm with you.
Yeah, man. I think Seattle's a top 4 or 5 team in the conference. And so, if you're a top 4 team, you should get to the second round of the playoffs. And then you steal a win on the road there. You're in the NFC Championship game. It could happen. Yeah. I think if they pulled that off, that would be an insanely successful season given the age of this team and where they're at with their development. And I tell you, if they do that, they are going to be on the short list of Super Bowl contenders the following year because everything about them is trending up right now.
So then how do they get to that point?
Outside of, you've got guys that you expect to perform well, Geno and Ken Walker and DK and Lockett and the 2 tackles. And, you're expecting Quandre Diggs to still be good and Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon and, and if you get what you got from Taylor and Wosu last year, get some rookies to contribute, all of that stuff puts them in position. I think the 2 real big fulcrum players that can genuinely substantially raise this team ceiling are Jamal Adams and Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Yep.
I think if we get the best version of those 2 guys, Seattle can be a top 3 team in the conference. To reach the NFC Championship game, though, I think you're going to need some help with seeding where somehow you end up with the Eagles and the 49ers playing each other in the second round. Because I just don't see Seattle, as currently constructed, beating either of those teams on the road in January. I just don't.
So you're saying they have to win the division to get to that point?
I think so. I think that's the most likely permutation. And I think that only happens if, tragedy continues to befall the 49ers quarterback position. Because I think if you go position group by position group with the Eagles and the 49ers against the Seahawks, the gap becomes pretty evident pretty quickly.
The 49ers are no stranger to tragedy, so that may be a good bet for you.
It could be. Could be.
I think that wraps it up, my friend.
Okay. Well, I got to say, man, every time we do this, I'm really, really impressed with the questions that come in. Today, no exception. Thank you, everyone who sent your questions in. For those who did and we didn't get a chance to get to them, apologies. But next time we do this, make sure you submit again because we love this stuff, man. Like I said at the top of the show, these are among my favorite shows. And honestly, any chance I get to pull Mike onto some more airtime is always good for me, good for the brand, good for the show. So yeah, man, a great show, man. I had fun doing this with you, Mike.
Right back at you, my friend.
Okay. That does it for today. As always, you can find Mike and I on social media. I am on Twitter at Jackson Bevens. That's at JacksonBevens. Remember that no K is okay when spelling my name. Mike is on Twitter at Mike Barwin. The show itself is at Cigar Thoughts. You can also find us on Instagram at Cigar Thoughts NFL. It was awesome to see the engagement on IG from y'all today. We're on TikTok as well at Cigar Thoughts. We're on YouTube at Cigar Thoughts. That's a big one. Please be checking us out there. That helps us out a lot. And we're also on Facebook at Cigar Thoughts, a football show. Of course, you can listen to the show and read every article at fieldgoals.com/Cigar Thoughts. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and you like the show, drop us a 5-star rating and leave a quick review. Finally, be sure to check out CigarThoughtsNFL.com to get your exclusive Cigar Thoughts cigars, or hit me up on Twitter and I'll shoot you the deets. When you buy these cigars, let us know on Twitter, Instagram, hit us up with a pic, tell us what you think. Thank you to all of y'all listening for your continued support of the show. As I say every week, we know you only got so much time for podcasts in your life, and it's an honor to be a part of that for y'all. Please know that by sharing the show on social media and with your friends, you give us the juice to keep making this happen. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, onwards and upwards, my friends.